is a remnant rising. This remnant, it's not a single church, it's not a single denomination or people group. It's made up of people's hearts all over the world who, after all the pruning, all the heartache, through all the process, have finally reached a point in their journey and say, you know what, God? I'm yours. All of me for all of you. I want my life to look like yours. I am willing to learn. I'm willing to change. I'm willing to answer the call if you will be with me. It's time to answer this call. It's time for the remnant to rise.
Hi everyone, welcome to Remnant TV. We are really glad that you have joined us for this week's episode. I am Lauren Meller, your host, and today we have an amazing guest. She is an advocate and she is super passionate about raising awareness concerning a very prevalent issue in our world today, which is sex trafficking. She is the organizer of A21 Freedom Chasers here in San Antonio. Please welcome Cecilia Lopez.
Hi.
Hey, thank you for joining us, Cece.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure to be here.
Woo, really glad you're here. So this is a really heavy topic that we're going to talk about today. And as Christians, I think that we are called to talk about the heavy topics and address them. But before we do that, perfect Remnant TV fashion, we're going to have a little bit of fun kind of getting to know you. So have you ever heard of the 2 truths and a lie game?
I have, yes.
All right. So we're going to play that. Can we play that with you?
Let's play that.
Okay, cool.
Let's do that.
All right. So have I played it before? That's the question. Yes, I have. Okay. I did. So I'm going to guess.
Okay.
Which one is the lie?
Okay.
All right. Go for it.
All right. So
the first one. No, I'm just kidding. Go for it. Keep going.
Okay. Let's see. 3 things. All right. 1, I do not have any sisters. 2, I'm Puerto Rican. And 3, I'm a Texan. I grew up and was born and raised in Texas.
Okay, so what was the lie?
I am not Puerto Rican.
Oh, got you. Okay, cool. So thank you for telling us a little bit about yourself,
Sure.
Cece. Today's topic, sex trafficking.
Right.
Super important. And I think today, especially in the world we're living in, we're kind of realizing that we all, as not just Christians, but humans around the world, we have not all experienced the same thing. We do not all come from the same worldview. So let's just kind of lay a foundation here before we talk about sex trafficking. Can you tell us what is the definition of sex trafficking? What is that?
Sure. So, human trafficking is the general term, right, that involves force, fraud, and coercion. So for someone else's financial gain, basically, it's the view of having someone seen as property. And there are 3 types of human trafficking. There's labor trafficking, there's sex trafficking, which we're talking about a lot today, and there's organ trafficking. And of course, all 3 of them happen everywhere around the world, but there are some that are more predominant than others. For example, here in San Antonio, one of our biggest problems is sex trafficking amongst youth, so minors. And there's a misconception that human trafficking or sex trafficking doesn't happen in the United States, that it's more of a third world country type of problem, but that is not true. It's not factual. It does happen all over the world. There is no zip code or place that you visit where you don't see it happening.
Wow.
And in many places it happens in plain sight. In most places it happens in plain sight. Here in our city it happens in plain sight. So we really have to work hard at educating people on what it looks like so that they can become aware of the problem happening.
Wow. So you're saying that human trafficking, and within that is sex trafficking.
That's correct.
It's affecting everyone.
Right.
How so? A lot of people might think, well, I'm not being trafficked. I don't feel like I'm being, affected by it. So how is it actually affecting everyone?
Sure. So it's a problem that we have that, like I said, is happening all over the world. And victims of human trafficking do not identify themselves as victims of human trafficking, right? That's what the term actually is, right? People that are being trafficked don't necessarily know they're being trafficked. It is a form of manipulation. It's a form of coercion that's happening by someone that is using all kinds of psychological manipulation on someone else, right? Like I said, in San Antonio, the biggest problem we have is with our minors, with youth. And so what that looks like predominantly here is someone coercing a young person into believing that they're in a relationship with them. It's basically meeting a need that someone states they have. For example, if a young person says, I'm struggling at home, I'm not getting along with my parents, then that's something that they quickly grab onto and will start to form a relationship like, no one loves you like I love you and I care for you. Even though they may be saying this to dozens of other kids, people, adults, boys, girls. So it happens in very deceiving ways, in very small, manipulative ways. There's a term that we use with victims of domestic violence called trauma bond, right? It's trauma bond. It's a psychological thing that happens when, we sometimes question, why don't these women leave their situations? Well, there's a psychological effect that's happened, and it makes it really hard for them to want to leave the situation. This is the same kind of manipulation that we see with trafficked victims. Is they have a real sense of, this is a relationship that I am in, and it makes it really hard for them to separate themselves from this. So what it looks like is, like I said, a young person believing that they are in an authentic relationship with someone, mostly because they have not had a real relationship with someone in their home. So in many cases, this is a case of, I've not experienced real love coming from my home, whether it be my parents, my foster parents, my guardians. And so it's easy to fill that gap for traffickers who are manipulating and deceiving them. It's so easy for them to fill that role of, I care for you.
Right. Wow. And so you're saying in San Antonio, it's usually our youth are being targeted.
Right.
Is that just San Antonio? Is this something that you're seeing is also around the world? It's our children, the next generation, or?
It definitely is, yes. It's something that's happening all over, right? The internet has made it so easy for traffickers to get on there and manipulate children, young people. But trafficking happens differently in every single zip code, right? So here in San Antonio, we see the problem being amongst young people. If you go to a place like Houston, which is not very far away from San Antonio, you'll see a problem in the cantinas, where it's the women being prostituted out through brothels and things like that. And although that happens here, it's not our main problem. Does that make sense? So human trafficking happens differently, predominantly differently everywhere, but the problem exists the same everywhere. So, if you go to, you said you were born and raised in Ohio. Yeah. So Ohio will experience more of familial trafficking. So it's the parents selling their children for sex. And it happens more so there that way, right? So they are still experiencing young people being manipulated online. But the bigger problem is that families are selling their children for sex amongst their own family. You'll have them offering them to their uncles, to their grandparents for a certain fee. That's trafficking, right? And in the past, that's something that we have to get really good at identifying, because in the past, it's something that just happened and you turn your cheek and you ignore it. But we have to call it what it is. It is trafficking. You are selling your child for a profit, and it is not okay.
Yeah. So this kind of sounds like a generational issue.
It could be, yes.
For a lot of this trafficking, because it seems like no matter, we can try to help people who are being trafficked and, bring them out of that lifestyle and rescue them. And that's beautiful. That's good. That is needed and necessary. But I'm asking you, where is the root of this thing? How do we even make it so it's not happening? Because we're
Right.
rescuing people, and there's amazing ministries, organizations, businesses, people around the world doing an amazing work. But how do we make it so that, you know, the next generation or a few generations later, this isn't even a problem that they have to figure out?
Right. So I think first and foremost, right, awareness is everything. When we start to shed a light on what this actually is and expose it for what it is, then we start to be able to prevent it from happening to the next generation, right? We are busy right now working for aftercare services and providing for victims that have survived this. But in the future, what we want to do is say, we did really well at educating people on what this looks like, that now they are advocates for this. And they are no longer going to be blinded to what this problem actually is. And we're going to call it what it is and prevent this from happening to an entire generation, right? But the root of it is basically it's lust, it's greed, it's people not being rooted and knowing their identity in Christ. Right? As believers, we have to know where our identity comes from. And if we don't know that, then it's so easy for anyone else to tell us who we are or to paint a picture of who they want us to be. And so that is actually the restorative part of this, is we have organizations working hard to reprogram the survivor's mind into saying that that's not who you are. This is who you are. And we're going to help walk alongside you and show you who Jesus says you are.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So do you, and thank you, Cece. Sure. This is so good. I'm like, wow. Do you think that Jesus can be or is an intricate part of healing these people, our generation?
Right. Absolutely. There's a saying that we say at A21 Freedom Chasers that says for freedom. And we're a faith-based organization. I'm a believer, and we don't know freedom without Christ, period. There is no freedom.
We don't know freedom
without Christ. Right. There is no freedom without Christ, none. So when we come alongside survivors and we try to help them get their lives started again, that's the first place we start, is showing them who Jesus is, because in finding who Jesus is, then they find themselves. And in finding themselves, then they have the courage to be able to really identify with what Jesus provides them, who Jesus calls them by name. And then they come along, and not only do they survive this and they see themselves as survivors, but then they start to thrive. And when they start to thrive, then they become leaders against this. And they come alongside other survivors and they say, let me tell you about the freedom I found. And then they experience whole freedom. It's not just being free from, the actual trafficking situation, but it's being free from the psychological trauma. There's a lifespan of a survivor of only 7 years, because they deal with the post-traumatic stress of surviving such horrific, situations. 7 years, that's it. That's the lifespan of a human trafficking survivor, of a sex traffic survivor. It's said that they suffer PTSD like a combat veteran. Think about that. Think about the stress that someone in a war zone is experiencing and has to come home to. And not only that, but the situation that they find their families in and having to cope through that. Wow. Now, someone who's never been to a war zone but has to suffer that trauma is a lot, wow. Right? And so when you think about the short lifespan that they have, 7 years, and you think, okay, Lord, we have 7 years to work with this person and really, really help them to see who you are. And when you see them seeing that and you see them walking in their freedom, it's just amazing. But absolutely, I don't think that Jesus can ever be separated from the restorative process.
Wow. Cece, this is so good. Thank you so much.
Sure.
We are going to be right back. You're watching Remnant TV. And listen, as Christians, as believers, we have a responsibility to steward this earth and steward it well. So we'll be right back. Hey everyone, welcome back to Remnant TV. I'm your host, Lauren Meller. We are here with Cecilia Lopez. She is an advocate and she brings a lot of awareness concerning human trafficking here in San Antonio. She has joined us today and is doing an amazing job just educating us, showing us, even as Christians, the body of Christ, how are we supposed to interact with what's happening in our world, no matter how dark it is, because it's our responsibility as believers to address it. So thank you, Cece.
You're welcome.
I want to talk a little bit about grooming.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking about human trafficking, sex trafficking. What is grooming?
Sure. So grooming is the process that happens after a trafficker has essentially attracted a young person, right? Like I mentioned earlier, they take them in as making them believe that they're in a relationship with someone, right?
Is this just a young person or is this a vulnerable person?
It's a vulnerable person.
Okay.
It's any person, male or female. They make them believe they're in a relationship with them. They make them feel like they are the only person that matters to them, male or female, and young person or adult. And once they have them believing that, you are the only person in my life, I love you, they take them through this grooming process where they basically will splurge on them. They will buy them anything that they want, expensive brands. They'll shower them with gifts. They'll take them different places. They'll travel with them, show them a nice lifestyle. Essentially always reminding them, like, this is what I can provide for you. This is what I can provide for you. And in that meantime, they're also grooming them to look a certain part. So you'll go to nail salons now and you'll see, there's the state of Texas, at least, it's mandated that a nail salon or a massage parlor will have a poster that says, look out for these signs because this person may be a trafficked victim. In the state of Texas, it's required because that is part of the grooming process. As they are showering this victim with all of these different things and this lifestyle that they want to present to them, they are also spending money to make them look a certain way. So they will get their nails done. They will take them to get massages. They will take them to get facials. In that process, they are grooming them to look like someone that would be attractive to someone else. Because remember, these traffickers think of this person as a product, as a commodity. They are wanting to entice a buyer to want this person. Wow. Yes, so they're taking them through that process. This grooming process can take anywhere from, weeks to a year, and they are patient. They are working their way to making this person feel comfortable enough to where they will do anything that they ask. So at first, they may be like, oh, I don't like going to this place. It makes me feel uncomfortable. No problem. I'll take you somewhere else. And they're essentially romancing them.
Wow, I was just about to say that sounds like a courtship.
Right.
Literally.
They're essentially romancing them, but at the same time, they're grooming them, preparing them for the process of, in many of my conversations with survivors, and it happens so quickly when they transitioned from the grooming process to now you're going to work. It's so quick. So they take them through this whole process. Like I said, it could take up to years while they're grooming them, making them feel very comfortable around them. And then it'll just happen one day they stop somewhere and the trafficker will say something like, I need you to do me a favor. All these things that I've been doing for you, you know, all these gifts I've been buying you, you know, the pretty nails I put on you. I need you to do me this one favor and go into this hotel room, do what they ask you to do, and then bring me the money. And it starts that way.
Wow.
And then overnight they have to meet a quota of $1,500 a night, $2,000 a night. And that's what trafficking is. It becomes that. There's no way of knowing it's coming, really. You just have to kind of be aware of, you know, are you really, do you have access to your own things? You know, did they take your phone away from you? Are you actually free to make phone calls to the people you love on your own accord? Or is someone always controlling where you're at, where you're going, where you're being taken next? Are you constantly moving from place to place? Why are they spending so much money? Where are they getting this much money? Right? Because essentially they've done this with 15, 20 other people. And that this is what we call a pimp, right? Someone who controls other people, who has access to the funds that you never get to see. And so it's important that, you know, we don't use that term lightly. I know that we hear it in music, and sometimes jokingly we'll say the word pimp, but to many people that's a harsh reality of their past and the things that they've overcome.
Wow. Being aware.
Right.
Being aware
Right.
is so needed,
Mm-hmm.
and sensitive to everything that's happening in our world, even if you don't feel like it directly affects you. That is very important. And that's what we're called to do. That's what we're
Right.
called to be.
Exactly.
Believers, healers, right? Healing
Right.
a hurting world.
Right.
And if I'm not the one who feels like I'm hurting, that does not take away my responsibility to still be sensitive to other people's pain.
Right.
That's really good, Cece. So how would someone recognize that maybe they're being groomed, or someone they know is being groomed? And even, I know I'm asking you a mouthful right now, because I'm sure it's very specific and detailed, which is needed, but even if a parent is watching this right now, how would they look into their child's life and their circle and see characteristics of, maybe my child is being groomed for human trafficking?
Right. Yeah. So first thing and foremost, right, I tell people there's something that God placed inside of us. There's a gut that we have, a conscience that we have, and if it feels wrong, in most cases it is, right? Trust that. Ask the questions. Be curious. Where is this money coming from? How can you afford? Have I ever seen you go to a job, an actual job? You know, asking the questions of, why do we have to constantly spend so much money? Why are you buying me these presents? We're at a time right now where our world is in a pandemic, and so a lot of us are stuck at home. You know, we've seen reports and things of traffickers becoming really creative and sending gifts by grooming the people that are home by sending gifts in the mail. So parents, is your child receiving things that you did not buy them? Ask the questions. You know, come from a curious perspective. This is one thing that I think parents, we really need to learn is, don't be so harsh on your child, because they need to be able to open up to you, be comfortable enough to come to you with the things that are uncomfortable for them to talk about in the first place. And if they're not talking to you and being open and honest with you, they are being open and honest with someone. So be okay with hearing things that hurt. Be okay with asking the hard questions and accepting the answer, whether you like it or not, right? But you have to be a place where your child feels safe to come to you and say, this is the person I've been talking to. I feel kind of odd about it. Why do you feel odd about it? What's going on, right? Let's talk, sit down, show me. And then ask the questions too. Who is sending you these gifts? Why? What did you have to do for that? You know, if you are someone who is being spoken to right now by someone that you've never met, whether it's online or, you know, some kind of online forum, it's okay to talk to other people, to open up and kind of take that curious perspective and ask a friend, like, I'm talking to this person, here's what they're offering from me. They're offering to buy me all these gifts. What do you think? have them reach out to a lifeline, have them inspect that with you, go through that with you, and together you all can explore that. Talk to a parent if you're a minor. You know, if it's in person, are you actually free, right? Are you actually able to go and come as you please? Is this person, you know, okay with being seen in public with you? Things, just little red flags that just seem odd for a relationship. If you are in a loving relationship, that person is going to sacrifice themselves for you. They're going to answer the questions for you. They're going to want to be seen in public with you. They're not going to coerce you or make you feel any odd way. So just those little subtle things, if it's weird, talk to someone about it. I would say, you know, a trusted person, a friend, a pastor, someone that you can confide in, and have them walk that with you and see, you know, and above all, if you're a believer, pray about it. The Holy Spirit will never lead you wrong. That's one thing you want to do, is completely take that to the Lord in prayer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Cece.
Absolutely.
Really appreciate you having you on the show and you sharing your expertise and even giving us tools as Christians and just as people, as believers, as good people who want to make a difference, you know,
Right.
Practical tools,
Right.
that we can put an end to this, so that our children don't have to experience human trafficking,
Right.
that this doesn't have to go on. So thank you so much for watching Remnant TV. Listen, if you'd like to be involved, we would love to connect with you. Please go to our website, www.theremnanttv.com, and we would love to hear from you. Listen, guys, there is a remnant that is rising on this earth, and we believe that you are called to be a part of it. We'll see you next week. If you or someone you know is interested in being a part of the show, or you'd like to donate and become a vision supporter for Remnant TV, we would love to connect with you. Visit us at www.theremnanttv.com, or you can send us an email to riseup@theremnanttv.com. Remember, there is a remnant of God's people rising up all over the earth, and we believe that you are a part of it. We'll see you soon.